I'm now going to take you through standing alignment. So you're going to bring your feet together, heels come out, and then toes come out to meet them. From here, we're just going to take a little rock backwards and forwards, so just feeling where the weight is in your foot, and then slowly bringing yourself to a standstill where that weight is evenly balanced between your heel and your toe. Once you've come to here, we're going to think about moving the weight into the outside of the foot so that the knees track the toes, keeping them soft. Then just a gentle tuck and tilt to keep an eye on where you're placing that pelvis. And we're going to slowly make that movement slower until your tailbone is pointing down towards the floor, restacking those vertebrae, growing towards the ceiling. Next, we're going to make sure the arms are staying next to your side, so your shoulder blades are coming back and down. Just give those shoulders a little wiggle. And then next, we're going to go through the pelvic floor, core, and breathing. So as we inhale, we're going to feel that rib cage expand into the sides, back and front. The diaphragm moves down and so does the pelvic floor. As you exhale, you're thinking about pulling your ribs to hips and pulling in the pelvic floor. So we're thinking sit bone to sit bone, pubic bone to tailbone. Again, we're going to inhale, feel that rib cage expand, and then exhale, draw those ribs in, engage that pelvic floor, thinking sit bone to sit bone, pubic bone to tailbone. Again, inhale, release, and exhale, engage. Inhale, release, and exhale, engage. Couple more breaths here with me. There's quite a lot of information to take in with the breathing, core and pelvic floor and how it works together. So don't panic if you can't nail this today. This is something that we're going to work on as we move through the course. Just keep thinking, I need to be breathing as I'm exercising, and keep thinking about pulling in those pelvic floor and core muscles at the same time. So pelvic floor, sit bone to sit bone, pubic bone to tailbone. Core, we're thinking rib to hip, hip to hip, belly button to spine. And now we're ready for our workout. I'm now going to take you through some squats with a raised heel. Now, if you find this too challenging to do with a raised heel, then please leave your heels on the floor, work on that leg power, and then come back to trying these with a raised heel. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by coming into a wide stance, so coming to about shoulder width apart with your legs, keeping your pelvis underneath you, and then we're going to take your pelvis backwards, bring your chest forward slightly, and come down into that squat position, trying to use a full range of movement. So try and go as low as you can. As you can see from my little wobbles, this is not easy when you are on the balls of your feet only and not letting those heels touch the floor. If at any point you need to, just bring those heels down for a little rest. This is going to work into your calves, your quads, your glutes and your hamstrings. So really working on those power leg muscles. Really seeing if you can come down into a deep squat. Keeping that balance, using your core muscle. So thinking about pulling your hip bones together, pulling your ribs down towards your hips. Keeping that core switched on to help with the balance here. Trying to improve that range of movement every time that you come down lower, always holding it there for a second before coming back up. And then once you've finished your set, just coming into your rest pose. I hope you're ready for some good work now. So we're going to come down onto our side and do a leg extension lift. So hip and shoulder in a line, bend the bottom leg if you need a little bit more support, lift the top leg to hip height. Then we're going to just bring it forward slightly, and you're going to raise it slowly and lower it back to hip height 3 times. We're then going to take the leg back to the middle, and we're going to do another 3 raises, keeping hold of that rib to hip connection, core switched on, and then taking it behind you. Really important that rib to hip stays strong. 3 more raises. This is a really good exercise for building strength in the side of the leg and the glutes, which I'm sure you're going to feel within the next couple of reps. Going to aim to do 5 or 6 sets of these, but if you need to, you can always reduce it down, remember, and you can also reduce the amount of raises. So if you need to do 1 or 2 raises at the front, middle and back to start with, and then progress up to 3, just keep a note of how many you've done in the app, and then you can always add more on at a later date. This is really tough, so quality over quantity always. So if you need to have a little break, have a little break. You could always split it down into 2 sets if you needed to. We're going to roll over and do the other side. So hip and shoulder in a line, bending that bottom leg if you need a little bit more support, and then a slow controlled rise to the front, the middle and the back. Aiming for 3, but if you need to, reducing it down to slightly less. Keeping your chin lifted, keeping your strong core engaged. So thinking rib to hip, hip to hip. Pelvic floor, we're thinking sit bone to sit bone, pubic bone to tailbone. There's no real breathing pattern for this exercise. I just want you to make sure you are breathing. This leg lift is really simple, but it's a really effective way of building strength around the muscles of the pelvis and the core. If you want to make this harder at any point, you can always try lifting that top arm up off the ground, and that's just going to mean that you have to balance more using your core, and you're going to challenge your core more. The other thing you can do is make sure that the bottom leg is not bent, so straightening out that bottom leg. And once you're finished, giving that leg a karate chop and coming back to sitting. This exercise is hip flexor strength. So when I come to sitting on your sit bones, bring your legs to one side of an object, and then we're going to slowly lift and lower the legs over the object. Now I'm using a kettlebell here, but it doesn't have to be a piece of gym equipment. It could be a football, it could be a water bottle. It really doesn't matter what it is. The more important piece of information is what is happening to your back as you lift that leg over. You shouldn't be leaning back. If you are, I want you to try and sit up nice and tall. Imagine someone's got a piece of string from the top of your head and they're pulling you up towards the ceiling. Keeping that core switched on, so we're thinking rib to hip connection here. This is a great exercise for building strength in the hip flexors, and weakness in the hip flexors can cause back pain, hip pain, and also tension when you're doing exercises where you need to extend through the hip flexors. So what we're going to do here is build strength in those hip flexors, which is going to allow for better stability and muscle balance around the pelvis. Once you have done your set, we're going to come into our rest pose. Now we're going to do a seated row. So you're going to come to sitting, legs straight out in front of you, and pop the band around the top of your foot. Then you're just going to hold onto the band, keeping your upper body upright, head looking forward, and you're just going to pull the band back so your elbows just come slightly past your body. Hold for a couple of seconds and then release back off. If you need to make this harder, you can pull the band in so the band is a little bit more tense. If you need to make it easier, you can just release some band out. The other way you can make this harder is once you've pulled it towards you, you could just hold it there for a couple more seconds before you release, keeping yourself nice and tall. The seated row is a really good exercise for building strength in the upper back, which is going to help to improve your posture. We're working several back muscles here. So we're working the lats or the latissimus dorsi, which is in the middle of the back, the rhomboids, which are between your shoulder blades, the trapezius, which is the diamond-like muscle between your neck, shoulders and upper back, and the biceps, so the front of the arm. And then once you've finished, coming back into your rest pose.